Baking cookies is making parents panic. Why? Because this recipe isn't just dessert, it's a crash course in your baby's brain. Shocked? Good. We're using Piaget's Sensorimotor stage to explain why hiding chocolate chips in dough will change how you see parenting and baking. Ready to freak out and learn? Let's go. You're about to learn something wild. Baking cookies might be the most delicious way to understand how your baby's brain works. Yes, you read that right. We're not just mixing flour and sugar today, we're mixing cognitive development with chocolate chips. Jean Piaget, the father of child psychology, spent his life unraveling how tiny humans grasp reality. His sensorimotor stage, the phase where babies realize the world exists even when they can't see it, might sound like textbook jargon. But what if hiding chocolate chips inside cookie dough could explain why your toddler melts down when you leave the room? Here's the kicker. Babies under 2 live in a world of out of sight, out of mind. That empty hand, to them it's a mystery. But when you bake these cookies, the chips vanish into the dough only to surprise you with molten joy in every bite. Sound familiar? It's the edible version of object permanence, the moment a baby learns that hidden things still exist. Parents are losing their minds over this recipe because it's not just dessert. It's a crash course in the chaos of early childhood development. Why does this matter? Because understanding Piaget's stages could change how you parent, teach, or even remember your own chang. And hey, you'll end up with cookies that taste like revelation. So, are you ready to bake your way through the neuroscience of infancy? The answer is baked right in. Welcome to cognitive cooking, where the kitchen becomes a classroom and every recipe is a lesson in human development. If you've ever wondered why your toddler throws a fit when you leave the room, or how a baby learns the world exists even when they close their eyes, you're in the right place. Today we're diving into one of Jean Piaget's most fascinating discoveries, the sensorimotor stage, using a method that might seem totally unexpected. Baking cookies. Yes, cookies. Because sometimes the best way to understand complex psychology is by getting your hands messy, whether it's with dough or ideas. Jean Piaget, the Swiss psychologist who revolutionized how we think about childhood development, spent decades studying how babies transition from reflexive actions to intentional thought. His sensorimotor stage, the first of 4 cognitive phases, explains how infants learn that objects and people exist even when they're out of sight. It's why hiding a toy under a blanket feels like magic to a 6-month-old, but obvious to a 2-year-old. But here's the twist. This same principle applies to the chocolate chips in our cookie dough. When we fold them into the batter, they vanish, only to reappear as molten surprises when you bite into the final product. That disappearing act, it's not just a culinary trick, it's a tangible demonstration of object permanence, the cornerstone of the sensorimotor stage. So what's the big idea? By baking these cookies, you'll not only satisfy your sweet tooth, you'll walk away understanding why your baby's brain works the way it does. Stick with us and we'll turn flour, sugar, and a few hidden chips into a crash course on cognitive development. Ready to learn by doing? Let's get started. Ever wondered why a baby acts like you've vanished when you walk out of the room? Or why hiding a toy under a blanket feels like pure magic to them? Meet Jean Piaget, the psychologist who cracked the code on how tiny humans learn to make sense of the world. His sensorimotor stage isn't just a mouthful of academic jargon, it's the blueprint for how babies transition from reflexive reactions to intentional actions. And yes, it's baked right into those cookies we're about to make. The sensorimotor stage spans the first 2 years of life, a whirlwind of discovery where babies learn through their senses and movements. Think of it as the touch, taste, repeat phase. Newborns start with basic reflexes, grasping a finger, rooting for a nipple. But by the end of this stage, they're intentionally reaching for objects, babbling, and even mimicking actions. The star of this developmental show, object permanence, the realization that things continue to exist even when they're out of sight. Without it, life is a never-ending game of peekaboo, where disappearing means vanishing forever. Here's where it gets fascinating. Before object permanence kicks in, babies live in a world of out of sight, out of mind. Hide a rattle under a blanket at 6 months, and they'll act like it's gone. By 8 to 12 months, they might tug the blanket away, their eyes lighting up like they've solved a cosmic mystery. This isn't just cute, it's a cognitive revolution. Piaget called it the A not B era, where babies repeatedly search for an object in the first place they found it, A, even after watching it get moved to a new spot, B. It's not stubbornness, it's their brains scrambling to update their mental maps. So what does this have to do with cookies? Imagine folding chocolate chips into dough. When raw, the chips are visible, tangible, a sensory experience. But once baked, they melt into hidden pockets only to surprise you with molten joy. For a baby developing object permanence, this is the edible version of their daily aha moment. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's gone. But wait, how does this tiny breakthrough shape their entire understanding of reality? Piaget argued that object permanence is the foundation for symbolic thinking, language, and even problem-solving. Without grasping that hidden things exist, there's no pretending, no words for absent objects, no planning. A baby who can't track a hidden toy has no concept of a parent leaving and returning. That's why separation anxiety peaks around 9 months, when object permanence is blossoming but not fully formed. This stage isn't just about toys and tantrums. It's the starting line for every skill we take for granted. Knowing a song continues even when you can't hear it, trusting that the sun will rise tomorrow, or believing that love persists even when someone's out of reach. The sensorimotor stage is where the brain builds its first scaffolding for logic, memory, and emotional security. And here's the kicker. You don't need a lab coat or a textbook to grasp this, just a bowl of cookie dough. By baking these cookies, you'll witness the same transformation babies experience, the shift from what you see is what you get to something's still there, even when it's hidden. It's psychology. You can taste one molten bite at a time. So, how does baking cookies tie into the sensorimotor stage? Let's break it down. The recipe starts simple: flour, butter, sugar, and chocolate chips. But here's where the magic happens. We're not just tossing these ingredients into a bowl, we're hiding the chocolate chips inside the dough, not on top. This tiny tweak mirrors exactly what babies experience when they begin to grasp object permanence. At 6 months old, if you hide a toy under a blanket, they'll act like it's vanished forever. By 8 months, they'll start to search for it, their brains slowly clicking into the realization that hidden doesn't mean gone. When we fold the chips into the dough, they disappear from sight, just like that toy under the blanket. The dough becomes a blank slate, a sensory mystery for your hands to explore. But the chips are still there, hidden but present, much like how a baby learns that their caregiver exists even when they leave the room. And here's the kicker. When the cookies bake, the chips melt and transform, creating pockets of gooey surprise. That's the edible version of what happens when a child finally understands that the world doesn't reset every time something vanishes from view. This isn't just baking. It's a lesson in delayed gratification and cognitive leaps. Babies spend months fumbling through the sensorimotor stage, slowly building the neural pathways that let them track objects and predict outcomes. Similarly, the dough needs time to chill, resisting the urge to spread too thin in the oven. Rush the process and everything falls apart. Patience pays off both in baking and in brain development. By the time you bite into a cookie, the chips reappear in a burst of flavor, just like a toddler's sudden aha moment when they realize you'll always come back after leaving the room. The connection is clear. This recipe isn't just about dessert. It's about how we learn to trust the unseen, one melted chocolate pocket at a time. Let's get cooking. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees, 175 degrees C, and grab a mixing bowl. The first step might seem straightforward: flour, baking soda, and salt. But don't underestimate its importance. Measuring these dry ingredients is like setting the foundation for cognitive development. Without structure, everything falls apart. Just as babies start with reflexes like sucking and grasping, these basics form the scaffolding for everything that follows. What does this have to do with the sensorimotor stage? Patience. We're building layers, just like the brain. Das. How the mixture lightens in color and fluffs up. This step mirrors the early months of infancy, where touch, taste, and movement dominate learning. Babies aren't just passively absorbing the world, they're experimenting. Every squish of dough between your fingers is a tiny scientist at work, testing cause and effect. Can you see where we're going with this? Here's where the magic begins. Fold in the chocolate chips. Not on top, they need to disappear into the dough. Take a chunk of dough in your hand. Can you still feel the chips inside, even though they're hidden? That's the heart of object permanence. A 6-month-old might stare at an empty hand, puzzled when a toy vanishes. But by 8 months, they'll dig for it, their brains slowly grasping that out of sight doesn't mean gone. The chips are the toy. The dough is the blanket. Your hands are doing the work of Piaget's experiments, one scoop at a time. Chill the dough for 10-15 minutes. Why? Because good cognitive development takes time. Rushing this step would mean flat, sad cookies, just like rushing a child's learning leads to gaps in understanding. Patience isn't just a virtue here, it's a necessity. As the dough firms up, think about how babies need repeated exposure to concepts. They drop a spoon, you hand it back, they drop it again and again. Each repetition strengthens their neural pathways, just like chilling strengthens the dough's structure. Now roll the dough into balls and place them on a baking sheet. Slide them into the oven and watch through the window. At first, nothing dramatic happens. The dough holds its shape, stubbornly resisting change, but something invisible is happening inside. The chips are melting, transforming, becoming something new. This is the aha moment. When the cookies emerge golden and crisp, the chips are no longer visible, but take a bite and they're there, molten and surprising. That's the edible version of object permanence. The chips didn't vanish, they evolved. Just like a child learns that mom or dad still exists even when they leave the room. Break one open. See how the heat reshaped everything? The dough solidified, the chips redistributed, but the essence remained. This mirrors conservation, the understanding that quantity stays the same even if form changes. A baby might cry when you pour milk from a tall glass into a short bowl, convinced it's more or less. But you know better. So does the cookie. The chocolate isn't gone, it's just hiding, waiting to surprise you. Every bite is a lesson. The crunch gives way to gooiness, a sensory experience that mirrors cognitive growth, messy, unpredictable, but deeply satisfying. You've just baked Piaget's sensorimotor stage into something edible, and if parents are freaking out over this recipe, it's because it makes them feel their child's confusion. Ever tried finding hidden chips in warm dough? It's a tantrum waiting to happen. But the end result? A revelation. So what did we learn? That understanding the brain isn't about memorizing terms. It's about feeling, doing, and sometimes eating. The next time your toddler screams when you leave the room, remember, they're not being dramatic. They're just not quite at the molten chocolate stage of object permanence yet. And that's okay. After all, even the best recipes take time. Here's the moment everything clicks. Pull the tray from the oven. The cookies are golden, crisp at the edges, soft in the center. But the real magic isn't in the aroma or the texture, it's in what's hidden inside. Take one fresh from the sheet and break it open. Watch as the melted chocolate chips reveal themselves, pooling into glossy pockets that were invisible just moments ago. This isn't just dessert. This is object permanence in action. Let's slow it down. When we folded the chips into the dough, they vanished from sight. To a 6-month-old, that would be the end of the story. But by 8 months, a baby's brain starts to crack the code. Hidden doesn't mean gone. That's exactly what's happening here. The chips didn't disappear. They transformed. The dough became a vessel, a temporary blanket hiding the treasure inside. And now, as the heat reshapes the structure of the cookie, the chips melt, redistribute, and re-emerge. Not where you expect, but where you discover. This is Jean Piaget's sensorimotor stage baked into a single bite. Piaget's experiments were full of these moments. He'd hide a toy under a cloth, watching infants' reactions. At first, they'd act like the object had been erased. By 9 months, they'd reach for it, their brains slowly building the neural pathways to track its existence. By 12 months, they'd follow the object if it was moved, solving what Piaget called the A not B error. The The tendency to search in the original hiding spot, A, even after seeing it move to a new one, B. It's not stubbornness, it's a developing mind grappling with the rules of reality. The same thing happens in your hand right now. You broke open the cookie expecting to see chips, but they've pooled into unexpected shapes. The dough didn't destroy them, it restructured. Them? That's conservation, another cornerstone of Piaget's work. Conservation is the understanding that quantity remains constant, even if form changes. A child might cry when you pour milk from a tall glass into a short bowl, convinced it's more or less. But you know better. The chocolate in these cookies, same principle. The chips didn't vanish, they just changed shape, just like the milk didn't disappear. It just spread out. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about chocolate or milk. It's about how we learn to trust the unseen. Object permanence is the foundation for symbolic thinking, language, and even emotional security. Without it, there's no pretending, no words for absent objects, no ability to imagine a parent returning after leaving the room. It's why separation anxiety peaks around 9 months. Babies start to realize you exist even when you're not there, but they haven't yet mastered the emotional logic of your return. The cookie, in its own way, mirrors this struggle. The chips are still there even when you can't see them. Your job is to trust the process. Now take a bite. The crunch gives way to warmth, the dough yielding to molten chocolate. This is the aha moment. The hidden becomes visible again, but only through action, through breaking, tasting, discovering. Babies learn the same way. They don't just absorb knowledge, they test it. They drop a spoon, watch it fall, reach for it, repeat. Every repetition strengthens their understanding. Every failed attempt to find the hidden toy teaches them where to look next time. The cookie, too, required repetition. Chilling the dough wasn't optional. It was necessary to prevent the chips from bleeding into the edges, flattening the whole batch. Rush the process, and everything collapses. Patience, like cognitive development, is non-negotiable. Think about how this plays out in real life. A toddler throws a tantrum when you leave the room. To you, it's a temporary absence. To them, it's a terrifying existential crisis. Their brain is still baking, still learning that people and objects persist, even when out of sight. The cookie, in your hand. It's proof that persistence isn't about visibility, it's about faith in the process. The chocolate was always there, waiting to surprise you. So is your child's growing understanding of the world, and here's where the science gets even sweeter. Piaget's work wasn't just about children, it was about how all of us learn. He believed knowledge isn't static, it's built through interaction. You can read about object permanence in a textbook, but until you see it in action, until you feel the tension of hiding and revealing, until you taste the hidden layers, you don't truly grasp it. That's why this recipe works. It's not just a metaphor, it's an experience, a sensory lesson in cognitive development. So what's the takeaway? That learning isn't passive. It's messy, unpredictable, and deeply satisfying. Just like baking, it requires patience, curiosity, and a willingness to get your hands dirty. The next time you watch a baby search for a hidden toy, remember the cookie. The next time you bite into a warm chocolate chip masterpiece, remember the brain. Both are works in progress, shaped by the invisible forces of time, heat, and discovery. And if parents are freaking out over this recipe, now you know why. Because it forces them to feel their child's confusion. Ever tried finding hidden chips in warm dough? It's a tantrum waiting to happen. But the end result? A revelation. Just like a toddler's first peekaboo moment, where disappearance becomes discovery, where chocolate becomes joy, where psychology becomes something you can taste. This isn't just baking. It's a crash course in the human mind. One bite at a time. The cookies are in the oven, golden, edges forming, the scent of warmth and sugar filling the kitchen. Through the glass you watch them spread slightly, the dough tightening around the hidden chocolate chips. This is the moment where science meets sweetness, the point where the unseen becomes undeniable. The chips are still there, even though you can't see them. They've melted, transformed, but they haven't vanished. Just like a baby's growing understanding of the world, invisible, but real. As the cookies bake, think about what's happening inside that dough. The heat reshapes everything. Flour and butter bind into structure. Sugar caramelizes into crispness. The chocolate chips, once distinct, now pool into pockets of molten surprise. This isn't just cooking, it's conservation in action. Conservation, as Piaget defined it, is the realization that quantity remains constant even when form changes. A child might cry when you pour milk from a tall glass into a short bowl, convinced it's more or less. But here, the chocolate doesn't disappear, it redistributes. The amount stays the same, but the shape shifts. That's the lesson. Now imagine a toddler watching this process. They'd see the chips go in whole, then vanish as the dough swells. To them, this might feel like magic or a puzzle. By 8 months, a baby might search for a hidden toy, their brain slowly grasping that absence isn't annihilation. By 12 months, they'd track the toy if it moved, solving Piaget's A not B error, the tendency to look in the original hiding spot, A, even after seeing it moved to B. The cookies do the same. The chips don't stay where you expect. They migrate, reshape, and reappear in unexpected places. The dough teaches flexibility, just like the brain does. When the timer dings, pull the tray out. The cookies are fragile. Now, wait a moment before moving them. This pause isn't just about avoiding burns, it's about patience. Cognitive development, like baking, requires time. Rush the process, and everything collapses. Babies need repetition to build neural pathways. They drop a spoon, you hand it back. They drop it again and again. Each repetition strengthens their understanding. The same goes for these cookies. Chill the dough too quickly, they'll spread too thin. Bake them too fast, the chips burn. Every step demands trust in the process. Now transfer the cookies to a wire rack. They'll firm up as they cool, just like a child's grasp on object permanence solidifies over time. The final product is a paradox. Crisp edges hiding soft centers, visible only when you break them open. Take a bite. The crunch gives way to warmth, the chocolate revealing itself once more. This is the aha moment. The hidden becomes visible again, but only through action, through breaking, tasting, discovering. Babies learn the same way. They don't just absorb knowledge, they test it. They drop a spoon, watch it fall, reach for it, repeat. Every repetition strengthens their understanding. The cookie in your hand is proof that persistence isn't about visibility. It's about faith in the process. The chocolate was always there, waiting to surprise you. So is your child's growing understanding of the world. And here's the kicker. This isn't just about cookies or toddlers. It's about how all of us learn. Piaget believed knowledge isn't static. It's built through interaction. You can read about object permanence in a textbook, but until you taste it, until you feel the tension of hiding and revealing, you don't truly grasp it. That's why this recipe works. It's not just a metaphor, it's an experience, a sensory lesson in cognitive development. So, what's the takeaway? That learning isn't passive. It's messy, unpredictable, and deeply satisfying. Just like baking, it requires patience, curiosity, and a willingness to get your hands dirty. The next time you watch a baby search for a hidden toy, remember the cookie. The next time you bite into a warm chocolate chip masterpiece, remember the brain. Both are works in progress, shaped by the invisible forces of time, heat, and discovery. And if parents are freaking out over this recipe, now you know why. Because it forces them to feel their child's confusion. Ever tried finding hidden chips in warm dough? It's a tantrum waiting to happen. But the end result? A revelation. Just like a toddler's first peekaboo moment, where disappearance becomes discovery, where chocolate becomes joy, where psychology becomes something you can taste. This isn't just baking. It's a crash course in the human mind, one bite at a time. Take a bite of that warm golden cookie. The edges are crisp, the center soft, and somewhere in the middle a molten pocket of chocolate waits like a secret you've just uncovered. This isn't just dessert, it's proof that hidden things still exist, even when they vanish from sight. And that right there is object permanence. Jean Piaget's sensorimotor stage isn't just a theory about babies fumbling for toys under blankets. It's a window into how all of us learn to trust the unseen. That cookie in your hand? It mirrors the same cognitive leap a toddler makes when they realize you'll return after leaving the room. The chocolate chips didn't disappear. They transformed. Just like a child's understanding of the world, they needed time, heat, and a little patience to reveal themselves. But this isn't just about cookies or babies. Think bigger. How often do we, as adults, mistake absence for disappearance? A friend who stops texting, a job that feels stagnant, a skill that seems out of reach. These aren't gone. They're evolving, waiting for the right conditions to re-emerge, just like those chips hidden in dough. Piaget's work reminds us that learning isn't linear. It's messy, non-linear, and deeply personal. Every aha moment is built on countless failed attempts, repeated experiments, and moments of frustration. So what does this mean for how we parent, teach, or even understand ourselves? Patience, trust the process. A baby isn't broken because they cry when you leave the room. They're building neural pathways one invisible step at a time. A student isn't failing algebra because they don't get it yet. They're in the cognitive equivalent of dough chilling in the fridge, waiting for the right heat to reshape their understanding. Growth isn't visible until it is. Did this recipe make Piaget's theory click? Did the act of baking, of hiding, waiting, and discovering make object permanence feel less abstract? If so, you're not alone. This is why parents freak out over the recipe. It forces them to feel their child's confusion, to taste the tension between what's seen and what's known. It turns a psychological concept into something visceral, something they can hold. Now, I want to hear from you. Did this edible experiment change how you think about learning? What other Piagetian concepts feel impossible to grasp? Conservation, egocentrism, the pre-operational stage? Drop your questions in the comments. Let's bake our way through the whole theory, one recipe at a time. Because here's the truth. Psychology isn't just in textbooks. It's in our kitchens, our relationships, and every hidden chocolate chip we learn to trust is still there. So go ahead, take another bite. You're not just eating a cookie. You're celebrating the invisible forces that shape how we all grow. There you have it, a golden brown lesson in how the human mind builds understanding, one bite at a time. You didn't just bake cookies. You baked insight. Hidden chocolate chips became hidden truths about how we learn, how we grow, and how we come to trust that the world doesn't vanish just because we can't see it. That's the magic of Piaget's sensorimotor stage, and it's the same magic that turns dough into dessert. Patience, transformation, and the quiet persistence of what's real, even when it's out of sight. But this isn't just about cookies or cognitive theory. It's about how we all learn, messily, repeatedly, and sometimes with our hands stuck in bowls of sticky dough. If you've ever wondered why your toddler melts down when you leave the room, or why a baby acts like a dropped spoon has been erased from existence, now you've got a new lens. A warm, gooey, chocolate-stained lens. And if parents are freaking out over this recipe, it's because it makes them feel the same confusion their child is navigating. Ever tried finding hidden chips in warm dough? It's a tantrum waiting to happen, but the end result? A revelation. So, what's next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did this edible experiment make Piaget's theory click? What other Piagetian concepts feel impossible to grasp? Conservation? Egocentrism? The pre-operational stage? Let's keep cooking. Let's turn more abstract ideas into tangible, tasteable truths. Because psychology isn't just in textbooks. It's in our kitchens, our relationships, and every hidden chocolate chip we learn to trust is still there. And if you're feeling the cognitive kitchen vibe, if you're excited to learn, by doing, to taste theories as you bake them, hit that like button, smash it, then subscribe. New videos drop every week, each one turning another corner of human development into something you can stir, fold, or sprinkle with sugar. This is where psychology meets the kitchen, where every bite teaches a theory, where the mess is the meaning. Stay hungry, stay curious, and remember, the best lessons aren't just learned, they're baked.